Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 16th, 2024 council meeting. Anyone in the audience needs amplified headphones, please raise your hand. Not seeing any. Let's rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Donna, do you roll call, please?
Yes, I will. Councilmember Blunt.
Here.
Councilmember Stearns. Here. Member Gilmore.
Here.
Mayor Lewis.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sherman. Here. Councilmember Sapp. Here. And Councilmember Gutierrez.
Here. Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Does council have any board reports to share? Oh, I'm sorry, do we have any late changes to the agenda? All right, do we have any board reports to share? Just want to say briefly that Chief of Police, myself, and City Manager met with a delegation of African country credit unions. There's another name for it. I've already forgotten it. It was a very nice visit with them. We exchanged little gifts with each other, and they went into the board meeting, but it was really nice to greet them to Shelton. So, Chief, you have anything you want to?
No,
Yeah, it was really nice, but. All right, anything else? All right, are we all ready for reading the consent agenda? All right, Donna, please read the consent agenda.
Vouchers numbered 111066 through 111094 and EFT payment numbers 466 through 480 and the total amount of $160,277.59. Vouchers numbered 111101 through 111129 and EFT payment numbers 481 through 497 in the total amount of $134,224.12.
Thank you, Donna.
Welcome.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as read. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This time, members of the public are invited to make public comment on any city related topic. Donna, anyone kind of a public comment?
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. Our first speaker is Jackie Jewett.
Jackie Jewett, Shelton, Washington. Transparency. Transparency is operating in such a way that it's easy for others to see what actions are performed. Transparency implies openness, communication, and accountability. So my big question is, when are we going to have a public forum, a hall, a town meeting, so that we can actually hear what the public is saying and we can actually get questions that are answered? The last one we had was kind of like going around from booth to booth to booth, didn't learn anything because nobody wanted to answer any questions. I don't know why. Is it because we don't have transparency? I don't know. I'm just asking that question. Leadership. A true leader connects and inspires and unites people, leading them down the right path while focusing on doing what is right. It's creating a culture of doing what is right, things in the right way. Mayor. The mayor is the chief executive officer of the city. In this role, the mayor is responsible for the general welfare of the city. The mayor also fulfills an executive role by seeing that the laws are enforced and that city officers' employees are properly doing their jobs. You know what? I'm more frustrated, sad. Let's be transparent here. I'm angry. I'm angry because I come here, and to be transparent, I don't like speaking in front of people. I don't. And I do it because I am upset. I'm upset and I don't know what else to do. I know that my words go on deaf ears sometimes, in one ear and out the other. And I don't understand what it's seriously going to take to actually understand how we feel. We are not holding public town hall meetings. We're not able to ask questions. I can talk to you for my 3 minutes, but I don't get any answers. And so I know, like, there's problems we're dealing with. My business is my house. I pay for it, I pay taxes, I pay the mortgage, I pay water, I pay power, I pay rent, or not rent, but you know what I mean. Everything I pay for, it's my house. It's my house. So what? Why don't we create an encampment in Terrace Heights? Why don't we let them go over there and steal power and water and hide garbage and defecate and shit on the sidewalk? So when I walk out the front door, there it is. I'm sure people in Terrace Heights have a shovel. Scoop it up off your own damn sidewalk. Really? Pissing, shitting on garbage cans? Really? You want to take your garbage out after that happens? People lurking after dark. Our cameras go off 24/7. After dark. Do we want those people lurking in your neighborhood?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Next is Dean Jewett.
Dean Jewett, lifelong Mason County member. That's a tough act to follow. Obviously, there's some emotions. People are pissed. There's a lot of people, a lot of business people that we chat with that don't want to come in here. Can any of you guess why? Because they get labeled as the hard asses. We're the ones that don't like the nonprofits, the poor homeless people, the poor street people. What about the business people? What about our efforts? They don't want to come in here because it goes in one ear and out the other. They don't want to be bamboozled. They don't want to have a bunch of bullshit blown up their ass. I just had to chase somebody down to Brewer Park that was on our sidewalks, digging through our dumpsters. Isn't there a fine for that? Isn't there an illegal dumping fee, Mark, of $500? But nobody does anything. Who cares about it, right? Because you call in, nothing happens. Where's code enforcement? Where's the people? So I tracked the individual down to Brewer Park and confronted him. I know you're not supposed to do that. I know Chief doesn't like it. I know his officers don't like it. I know dispatch doesn't like it. But I'm frustrated. What am I supposed to do? So I go down there and confront the individual. Goes off, berserk, sideways, spitting, yelling, screaming, people coming up, spitting on my truck, throwing stuff at my truck, throwing stuff at me, spitting on me. That's assault. I wonder if the mayor would like it if I hucked a loogie on him. I don't think he would. Okay, you guys think I make this stuff up? This stuff happens every single day to the people that are downtown. It's embarrassing, so that individual finally got arrested. And you know what? When the police got there to talk to him, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, officer. This gentleman came through Brewer Park and he was antagonizing us. It's weird how they can act normal when there's an authority figure there, but when any citizen or anybody else comes around, it's completely chaos. I felt threatened. I felt worried. It was a good thing that I practiced my Second Amendment. Do I ever want to use my Second Amendment in Brewer Park? Absolutely not. That is the last thing that I would ever want to do. But you all, by lack of enforcement and lack of leadership within the council, and I don't mean all the council, I mean a couple people. I'm looking at them right now. Oh, absolutely. Hey, Miguel, how you doing? Why don't you take care of your...
Have any interactions with the audience?
Exactly.
Because you're wasting my
No,
time.
you can't.
You're
No.
wasting my time.
Can we put mine seconds back on, please?
Okay. Let him finish.
So anyway, it's ridiculous. Let's step up to the plate and make some positive changes for everybody so that I don't have to get up here and you don't have to listen to me. Best way to do that is have two people resign. Back at you, buddy.
Super hugs, my friend, super hug.
Yeah, why don't you take care of your house and get it off
Come on.
the code enforcement
Well,
list?
this is a business meeting, come on. Don, anyone else?
Then he needs to be removed. He totally violated his duties
Okay.
right now.
This is our business meeting,
He violated it.
there's a council here.
He violated it.
Donna, and no, is anyone else on that?
No, there is. He intentionally antagonized me by waving at me. Intentionally.
Come on, let us continue.
Maybe he should be removed.
Well, anybody want to remove Miguel from the meeting?
Oh, nobody's gonna stand
I
up
move
to
to,
you.
I move to remove Miguel from the meeting. 5 seconds. Do I have a vote?
There's a motion and a second, to remove Miguel Gutierrez from the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Was there four? Wait, I want a roll call vote, please. Okay. George? Aye. Melissa? Tom? No. No.
Good night. Good night. Good night, guys.
Next on the agenda is a presentation from Finance Director Mike Gibbons.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of council. Tonight is the financial report for the month of May. So just a couple of other updates from finance. The 2025 budget development is well underway. We really start that in May and June, and then July and August, the work is happening in earnest. Department directors and other staff members are working hard to get the budget prepared so that what you and the public have is a very well thought out document. We just closed the month of June this week, so we have that 50% look at the fiscal year. So while I'm going to focus on May, we're able to start looking for estimating purposes at 50%. It makes kind of a nice way for us to really see what projects are going to be completed, what projects aren't, what expenditures maybe we thought were going to happen. We need to really be thinking about next year. So a lot of thought and work is going into developing next year's budget. The city manager and I talked this week. We'll be convening the finance committee of the council early next month to start taking a look at things. So we'll have a lot of detail for you in the coming weeks. So let's take a look at the May financial report. We know more in May, obviously, than we did in January. Our estimates are able to get a little bit more accurate. I think that if you take a look here on page 1, I have it up on the screen. The estimated net revenue less expenditures is showing that revenue is, we're estimating anyway, to exceed expenditures by just over $363,000. So that's really a positive for us. We're accomplishing a lot, but we're also able to see where our revenues are coming in more accurately at this point in the fiscal year. Naturally, we have first half property taxes in, and that helps a lot. So when we go from estimating to actual, it just helps give us a little bit more backup in what we're predicting, because we don't want to be off on that. We don't want to overestimate. We tend to be a little bit more conservative in finance. So I feel like what you're seeing there is looking pretty darn close to where we'll see it be this year. The ending fund balance breakdown, I wanted to spend just a moment on that. Our 20% of current year budgeted expenditures is reserved per city policy. As a reminder, it's part of our policy so that we're not only good stewards of public funds by having that reserve for unexpected emergencies. It could be an economic downturn that we might need to tap that, but it also allows us to have sufficient cash to meet seasonal cash flow shortfalls, because we do get, a big portion of our revenue for the general fund comes in the form of property taxes, which is just distributed twice a year. So in managing our cash flow, it allows us to be able to pay our bills, our employees, without having to do any kind of short-term borrowing. So just as a kind of reminder, sometimes that amount looms large, but it ebbs and flows with how we are using the cash in the city. But we're well positioned, I think, with that 20% policy in place. On page 2 of the financial report, just to take a a look at kind of where the general fund revenues are. You'll notice we're estimating close to realizing budget, if not over budget, in most of these categories. And so I'm pleased with that. I think it shows a strength in our local economy. We're estimating full realization of property tax revenue. That, of course, is due to the levy, so that's a pretty straightforward one to know about. But when you get down to sales and use tax, that's coming in just about right where we are predicting it. As I've said before, there's not a lot of fluctuation in our sales tax in the city. But I think knowing that it's not falling is an indicator that the economy is holding steady, which is a good sign. On page 4, there's other important information in here, but I'm just picking out some of these spots to take a look at. On page 4, we present a general fund year-to-year comparison with revenue and expenditures, in particular by line item or category or department, if you will. This is a nice area to look at comparisons in prior years. So if you take a look at, for instance, where we're estimating our sales and use tax to be, it's picking up a little bit, but it holds pretty darn steady. There's just not a lot of change in that. You can see where some of those other lines are. You can also see down in the general fund where the expenditures are happening. On page 5 of the financial report, we present a month-to-month comparison. So as I've said before, on this, sorry for moving that so much. On this one, I like to look at it because it really can show where you're at for that same month, going back a couple of years, so that we can really take a look at where are the expenditures, not only by department, but also in revenue. Where are those kind of landing and where are they off maybe? Sometimes it's a little hard to interpret things when some of the lines are grant related, but in particular, again, property tax, sales tax, utility tax. We naturally expected B&O tax to be up. As I mentioned last month, I think we've struggled a bit to make sure that our regular payers of that are remitting the right amount. We're following up with folks, and I think it's looking better. I don't think we'll be too far off budget on that, but again, it's a little bit hard to predict because our annual payers won't come in until the beginning of next year. So I think once we have some data going off of that, we'll be able to have a realistic look at where that budget should be. I'm pretty conservative right now in the estimate for 2025, as I was for this 2024 budget on B&O tax. On page 7, this is a page I think we focus on quite a bit. It's our estimated fund balances across all city funds. So starting with the general fund, working through all of the other funds, including water, sewer, and storm. Everything's looking really good. A lot is happening in the city with the capital funds, as you've seen work around happening. So those drawdowns of those are somewhat due to that. We're very fortunate to be receiving grant money to help with that, but there's a lot happening. Down towards the bottom on the citywide FTE, not a whole lot changed from the April report. We had one more vacancy down in the other funds, so it went up from 2 to 3. So our total citywide vacancy went up from 7.5 in April to 8.5 in May. So that's holding pretty steady. We lag, I mean, we're lagging now on this about 6 weeks. We know a little more in the middle of July. Some positions have been filled. We know, I mean, 2 started in the month of July, so this will change a little bit as it goes forward. We continue to work diligently on making sure our grants and contracts are billed for. July is that quarterly billing time where we're looking back and billing for April, May, and June. That really keeps the cash coming in on those. So I want to give credit to the finance staff that does that work. we had a call today with our public funds investment portfolio consultant. We try to do that regularly just to make sure our investments are in the right position. We are invested in a way to make sure we're earning the most interest, but as with all public funds, we have to follow specific policies and laws. So our funds are invested safely with little to no risk, with liquidity, so that we can have access to the funds quickly without paying any kind of penalty. We're looking pretty good. I think the read on the economy is what we're most interested in, because the local government investment pool, where we hold quite a bit of our investment right now, is earning unprecedented amounts because of the way the interest structure is. As soon as the Fed makes some movement on that, that'll change a bit, and we'll work towards getting some of the city funds structured in a way that we're well timed. But most of our interest, as I had a department director say recently, how come the interest is so high on this amount? And it's because the LGIP is just earning this unprecedented amount right now. So it pays to have that short-term investment. But I'm sharing this largely just so you know, we keep our eye on that in finance to make sure that we're watching where those funds are getting the most earnings as we can on that investment that we hold for our public. So that's all the comments I have formally on the May financial report.
Comments or questions? Thank you and your staff, city manager. Things didn't look this good at the beginning of the year or the end of last year as well. So I'm pretty excited and looking forward to keep this going, balanced budgets, keep this going. And I know that we have some unreserved money here that we will need to look at here in budget season, you know, roof and some other things, but I think that's coming conversation.
We will certainly discuss that through the subcommittee and at a forthcoming study session, so the council understands the needs that we have ongoing and in the future that we need to plan for, so we're not caught off guard, not able to maintain our infrastructure and meet our obligations.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments or questions? All right, thank you, Mike. Right. Our business item is a resolution to accept grant funds from Wallace Neal Boulevard intersection. Capital Project Manager Aaron Nix has details for it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. I bring forward to you some more grant money. This is specific to the Wallace Nealon Shelton Springs intersection. What we're doing is, this is more of kind of just process that we have to go through. What we're trying to do is realize the $650,000 that we've been granted. So our first step is to get it in front of the council and get approved so that we can then start going into design and other things. This particular intersection has had some interest in the long term, but recently as well, just with regard to level of service and how that intersection functions. There was some initial discussion about potentially putting a roundabout there. There's also been discussions of doing some signal upgrades. We also talked this afternoon about maybe doing some signal adjustments with regard to the timing. I guess the bottom line that I need to bring to the council is that we need to come back to you. What we'd like to do is accept this money. But as far as the future design, we're still kind of want to have more discussion with you guys with regard to the notion of a roundabout versus a signal. If you get a chance, I mean, you're out, take a look at the intersection when you go through it. The cost difference is significant. Roundabouts are about $4 million. The identified improvements as far as the signal are about $1.5 million. So we do have the $650,000 that we have, not enough to do the signal nor the roundabout, but then we also have some additional monies that we got from the legislature that is very specific to roundabouts. So I need to come back to you and give more options, but tonight, all we want to do is start the process to get these monies accepted so that we then can start scoping out design and what we're going to do. So if there's any questions. Lastly, this is very old money. It was awarded in the 1921 biennium. So we want to get going, and local programs has also said, get the money tagged and start using it.
2021?
Say
Twenty
again?
twenty-one?
No, the 2019 through two thousand
Oh,
twenty-one
21,
biennium.
yeah.
1920.
Yeah.
Year,
It's
I'm
been a
sorry.
while.
Old money.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move to place resolution number 1341 724 under the consent agenda for August 6, 2024 council meeting.
All right, Mr. Questions? No, all right. We have a motion and a second to place resolution number 1341 724 on the consent agenda for August sixth council meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. There are no action items tonight, so we have a city manager report tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Just a couple things for me tonight. The city will have a booth this Friday at the Chambers Business Expo and by Mason County, I believe is the title. Down on Railroad Avenue. We don't know where we're located yet, but it'll be staffed through the duration with city staff. We certainly are focusing on outreach for our comprehensive plan and want as many individuals in our community to come up and talk to us and give us feedback about kind of their visions of Shelton over the next 20 years, but we'll certainly talk about projects and recreation programs or any other questions that might come about from the community. Speaking of recreation programs and other movies in the park series this Friday at Neyland Park. I think they started just after 9 o'clock last Friday, so hopefully it's getting darker a little earlier, like about 10 minutes a day or so. You can start a little earlier, so.
Very
people stay
successful
awake.
evening.
Yeah.
Full park.
Terrific. I was contacted by the US Postal Service on Friday, just a phone call. They wanted to assure us that they were continuing to look at the lease agreement and will get back to us fairly soon with a counter proposal, but I'm hoping that that comes to fruition here in the next few weeks and I have something to bring back to council for consideration. And then as we talked about briefly before the meeting started, we have a 5th Tuesday this month, 2 weeks ahead, but July, I almost said November. July 30th is the 5th Tuesday of the month and we don't hold meetings that month. So you have a free Tuesday at the end of this month in July. So that is all I have for you tonight.
Questions for the city manager? All right. Council have any items for discussion?
I do.
Councilmember.
I want a motion that we suspend 20.388-030 section A of temporary sign code until December 31st, 2024. So we have time for public input and we can address some issues and concerns that our community members have.
Right.
Oh, here.
I can read it like you. Okay. We have a motion and a second. To suspend motion that we suspend. 20.38.030 section A of the temporary sign code, December 31st, 2024. So we have time for public input so we can address some of the concerns community members have. So, I'm sorry, comments or questions, discussion, right?
You want to do public comment portion or?
Yes, let's do the public comment. Anybody want to sign up for the public comment on this? Sign code? All right. Okay, so we have motion in a second. Comments?
Mayor, if you don't mind, let me clarify section A, just for the public's benefit, council's benefit. So 2038-030 is the section on temporary signs. And temporary sign compliance has a number of items that they would comply with, including size and repair and placement. Section A of this code states the maximum size of a temporary sign shall be 16 square feet.
And if I can give a reason. So the reason I'm bringing this motion up is I recently learned that our sign ordinance prohibits the sponsorship of banners from companies who donate to our youth sports teams. These have been a much needed source of revenue that supports our kids in living healthy lives. As a father of an athlete, I know how much of these programs are held together with shoestring budgets. I know how hard our student athletes work on the field, and I don't want to be the reason that they don't have that opportunity. After receiving numerous complaints from business owners, elected officials, and private residents about this part of the ordinance, I believe it is what our community wants. Before the end of the year, I'd like to see a committee put together to find out what our community members do want. And with that information in hand, we can choose how to best move forward in the new year.
Would this section or for you, would this
Please.
section resolve the issue of being able to put up sponsorship signs, like,
Just the size.
just the size?
Yeah, there's still a 4 temporary sign per parcel limit within the code. This would eliminate the size. Now it eliminates all sizes. Our current maximum is 16 square feet. It opens the door to any size, which may lead to building code issues or something like that, depending on what somebody wanted to put up. But we can't regulate on content. That remains the same. There's a Supreme Court decision, so that whatever size sign could say whatever you want. It could be a business sponsoring, it could be a campaign sign, it could be a for sale sign, it could garage sale sign, it could say as colorful language as one can think of.
And for immediate action, we are just only limited to our ability to suspend this line, and we can't institute a new one.
To amend the code or amend this code section, it would take an ordinance that would come before the council. We have to properly notice the public, 14 days public notice, have a public hearing, and subsequent, that'd be a public hearing and then action agenda item. So at best, what I can kind of pencil out, depending on where we're at, that's if we could get something in front of the council on August 20th. Typically, when you open up the sign code, it opens it all the way up, right? Because you get a lot of opinions, a lot of comments. So my guess is that depending on the council's desire, if it was as simple as that, we didn't go any further, we could get something in front of you on the 20th. It would be considered on the next meeting, which would be, August 20th would be the first meeting in September, I think. Third. And then we have noticing requirements after that, and then effective dates after that, which would be September 17th would be our best guess when a code amendment would become effective.
Thank you. Questions?
We heard of it for a really long time, just to open up the door to change plans. If people want to comment, I think that they do.
All right, anything else?
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, anytime we suspend any portion of our code, there's ramifications. As I mentioned, it opens up the size of any temporary sign. So this is for any lot in the city. It could be a 3,000 square foot lot, which we have in our neighborhood residential zone, up to, tens of acres within our commercial areas. Our temporary sign code found limitations, based on what the chamber's feedback was when we were going through it back in 2022, to council, to staff. We addressed not only advertising for youth sports teams, but advertising for garage sales, campaign signs, for, like I said, real estate signs and things like that. How to reduce clutter, how to maintain a look, sense of community that you might have. So that's, as staff, administering something like this may be fairly difficult because we won't have any teeth, quote unquote, in administering of this code as far as size. I looked through about 7 other cities, saw everything from 8 square feet in Chehalis for political signs and temporary signs. 1 sign per lot in Centralia. Port Orchard was 4 square feet, 32 square feet in Aberdeen. So I didn't see anybody with unlimited size, if you will. There was always some size regulation, at least in the 7 cities I looked at in close proximity to us.
Is there another section here that addresses Councilmember Blush's concerns that would not open us up to 30 square foot signs or billboards down on Railroad?
I guess the building code would address it at that point. So if it's over 6 feet in height or over 6 feet in height, the building code would administer anything like that. Again, that's going to be an enforcement issue and a staffing need. Certainly with outside building code services right now, as a building official, I don't know how proactive that service would be. We'd have to contact that consultant. The only other thing I can think of is kind of maybe obstructions, sightline obstructions and things like that. If the signs get too big, which is covered in our code, we have to address right now, depending on no matter what the size of the sign is, right? But as signs get bigger, they could lend to more obstructions or more issues there, blowing down in the wind, particularly if they're temporary, right? If the bigger they get, the more susceptible they are to maybe some of those things, but.
So this motion itself does not help the issue at the school, that they can still have their signs on the inside of the fence, but this motion doesn't help the outside of the fence, is what I think what you wanted, correct?
So I know now that they can face the signs inside on the yard there.
That's so.
Yeah, that's a way that they can address it without either way, whether we change it or not. But it's just, there's a lot of these signs that are around town. There's a lot of people that like to put up signs, especially coming around this time of year. There's a lot of event signs that go up. There's a lot of stuff in the city that, we can only, have rules for some and not for all, it doesn't work out well. So, and we put up our own temporary signs here in the city that are bigger than that. So, we need to be fair to everybody.
Can we, George, can we amend this to, instead of December 31st, until the soonest possible time that city manager can set up a study session, a public hearing for the sign code? Can we, instead of waiting to the end of the year, if he can do it September, that would be great, or,
Well, yeah, I just want to give them up until the end of the year to get something put together that we can that we can have the public's input on, that they can come in and go, hey, look, this is what we like to see. This is how we want this done going forward. And we can all come to the table knowing exactly what they want, instead of just picking codes from, around other places.
correct, no, I'm okay with that. What I'm saying is if we get it on the agenda sooner.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm open to
and
that.
then, okay, so I don't make motions. I would entertain a motion to just change this from December 31st until as soon as the manager can get us on the agenda for study session and public hearing and stuff like that. If anybody would.
Yes, you can put a committee together and to give
Right.
public input. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fine.
Is
Friendly
anybody
manner.
up for making that motion?
I motion that we amended the suspension of 20.38.030 section A, temporary sign code, until we can get it in front of a committee and a study session for the council.
Okay. I'll second that. All right, so we gotta deal with this, with Donna, we gotta deal with the second motion first, or the first motion?
You have to resolve the second motion.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. For to suspend 2038.030 section A of temporary sign code until we can get it in front of a committee and a study session. As soon as our city manager can get it arranged for public input. So. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So that motion carries. So now the first motion. Removing this, so do I just remove the 31st? Out of the
So I'll
motion?
withdraw that motion.
That was, yeah, you can either vote on or
Yeah,
withdraw.
I'll
it.
withdraw it.
Okay, so I gotta do anything for that? Okay, so the second motion stands?
Yep.
All right. Okay. So. For a little parliamentary procedure there, right?
So, yeah, so if you don't mind for clarification, back to a study session, is this focused solely on temporary signs and section A, or are we opening up the sign code in its entirety? Are we opening up the sign code for temporary signs? What is the council?
My
desire.
Councilmember Flush is that we just open up temporary signs. Because we worked for a year and a half, almost 2 years on the sign code, and the reason that we worked on the sign code is because it was like 90 pages. And
Yeah, and it was very,
it was
very old.
complicated and
It did
hard to
not,
understand.
it did not meet Reed versus Township of Gilbert, I believe it is, back in the East Coast. That was a Supreme Court ruling that said you cannot regulate signs based on content. And so our code violated that in many instances. We weren't able to enforce in any case. So And what we saw is we saw a lot of clutter and we saw a lot of temporary signs, taking up frontages, road frontages. They weren't maintained. They often, blew over. If they blew over into public property on the right of way, we could remove them. We can't go on public property to remove those temporary signs. We have to contact the property owner and go through an abatement process essentially if that happens. So that's why that sign code was kind of opened up, not only to make it more clear, but also address some of the deficiencies that we were seeing within that old sign code.
So,
Okay, so temporary signs, is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
all right. Our next meeting is Tuesday, August 6th, 2024 at 6 p.m. I'm sorry, does council have any other items for discussion?
Yeah, you mentioned movies in the park. Isn't there also a field day tomorrow at Nealon Park?
It's last week.
Last week,
That was last week?
yeah,
Shoot,
sorry.
missed it.
Yes, last week, open field day, it looked like it was a good turnout. It was hot on Wednesday, but, yeah, as always, Nealon Park's quite popular this time of year and very busy. And we're happy to have that as a community asset and available to our public.
All right. Okay. Our next meeting is Tuesday, August 6th at 6 p.m. We also have a study session on July 23rd at 6 p.m. This meeting is adjourned at 6:40 p.m.
Recording stopped.